How does inflation benefit the rich and destroys the poor? Inflation is a silent force shaping our economy, but not everyone experiences it the same way. While the wealthy often finds ways to benefit, middle and lower income individuals like teachers, nurses, and small business owners struggle to keep up. This deep dive explores why inflation widens the wealth gap and what professionals can do to protect their finances. So, what is inflation? Inflation is the rise in prices over time, reducing the purchasing power of money. Simply put, the same amount of money buys fewer goods and services as inflation increases. What are the causes of inflation? First one is demand pull inflation. It is when demand for goods and services exceeds supply, then price increases. Cost push inflation is a second cause for inflation, wherein production costs increase. For example, higher wages, supply chain disruptions. Therefore, businesses pass those costs to consumers. The third cause for inflation is monetary policy, wherein the central banks print more money, its value decreases, causing inflation. So, moving forward, how does inflation benefit the rich? First is through asset appreciation. So, wealthy individuals own assets like real estate, stocks, and businesses. And as inflation rises, so does the value of these assets, making them richer. For example, a house purchased for $500,000 back in, let's say, 10 years ago, can be worth $700,000 now, or $1 million even, during inflationary periods, increasing the net worth without any extra effort. The second is debt devaluation. So the rich often borrow money at fixed interest rates, especially, if the interest rates are very low, like around 2%, 3%, like almost negligible. Inflation erodes the real value of debt, making it cheaper to repay over time. For example, a $1 million mortgage taken 10 years ago feels smaller today due to inflation. The third way for how inflation benefits the rich is business pricing power. Large corporations can raise prices to match inflation, maintaining profit margins. For example, luxury brands like Hermes, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Chanel increase prices, but obviously because of their brand, the customers continue to buy, protecting the revenue of the business. For another example, the other side of the coin, how does inflation hurt the poor and the middle class? First is through wage stagnation. So salaries do not always rise as fast as inflation, therefore reducing the purchasing power. For example, a teacher earning $50,000 may find that everyday expenses increase, but their salary doesn't keep pace. And this actually happened to me with my friend. So I was the first one to get hired in the hospital as a nurse. And then a few months later, my friend was hired And I asked him how much he was earning every month. And he said a certain number, which is basically a lot more than what I'm getting. So some people would say, instead of just staying in a job for like 5-10 years, it's actually better to move to another place, because when you move to another place, they would offer you a higher pay or a higher salary compared to when you stay in that position for that long and they only give you 1% increase for a year. And if you compare it to the rate of inflation, it's like 3%. So you're losing out money. The second way inflation hurts poor and middle class is through rising costs of essentials. Rent, groceries, healthcare, and transportation costs increase, disproportionately affecting lower income individuals. Like, for example, gas prices rising from $3 to $5 per gallon can severely impact daily commuting expenses. And it's much worse if the person drives for like an hour or 2 hours every day. The third way of how inflation hurts the poor and middle class is declining savings value. So we all know that we have to have an emergency fund in our savings account just in case, we need to use it on a rainy day, like the boiler breaks down or the car breaks down, or we just need it just in case. Well, money sitting in a savings account loses value over time. For example, the $10,000 in your savings account, just earning 1% interest, actually loses purchasing power if the inflation is at 5, 6, or 7%. The fourth way how inflation hurts the poor and the middle class is higher interest rates on loans. So, while the wealthy benefit from cheap past loans, the middle class faces higher borrowing costs. For example, mortgage rates that increase now from 3% to 7% makes home ownership less affordable. So this is what's happening here in the UK, in the United States, wherein not a lot of people could actually afford to buy a house because you have to have like a 10% down payment, even 20% down payment, and the rates are like 6%, 7%. So, that's how inflation hurts the poor and the middle class. But on the lighter side, how do we beat inflation? Number 1, investing wisely. So people have the capacity to invest in stocks and ETFs, real estate, or commodities. So with stocks and ETFs, companies that adjust prices with inflation maintain profitability. Real estate, property values tend to rise with inflation, so that's a good hedge for inflation. And commodities like gold, silver, and oil tend to hold value during inflationary periods. Second way to beat inflation is generating additional income through side hustles, freelancing, and passive income sources help keep up with rising costs. So if you invest with dividend stocks, that gives you dividends either quarterly or even monthly. You just need to pick the right dividend stocks that has a good moat and a great past record. The third one is negotiating salaries and benefits. So professionals should ask for raises that match or exceed inflation rates. For example, A nurse negotiating a 7% raise when inflation is at 6% maintains purchasing power. Or, well, what's happening here in the UK is that every year, usually the last time I checked, they would just give normal band 5s a 1% increase on the salary. And that's not going to be enough if the inflation rate is 4% or 6%. So as I've said a while ago, it's better to move to a different job who offers more, way more than the salary that you're getting. Fourth way is cutting unnecessary expenses. Identifying areas to reduce spending helps counteract rising costs. So for example, switching to a more affordable grocery store or reducing subscription services like Netflix, or just having your iced coffee at home, or other subscriptions that you don't really need. The fifth way is utilizing government and employer benefits. So taking advantage of tax breaks, retirement contributions like pensions, and inflation-protected securities like tips can safeguard wealth. So for example, investing in 401k in the US, or what I do is I invest in a trading account, but I put it on an ISA so that the government wouldn't tax it. And in conclusion, inflation disproportionately benefits the rich while making life harder for the poor and middle class. However, by understanding its mechanics and taking proactive steps, professionals can protect themselves. Investing wisely, increasing income, negotiating salaries, and reducing unnecessary expenses can help individuals not just survive, but thrive in an inflationary economy. The key is financial literacy and action. How will you adjust your financial strategy to fight inflation? Leave a comment below, and you could share your thoughts on how you save and how you invest your money. And of course, if you like this video, just please click like and subscribe so I could make more of this kinds of videos for you and other people. Thank you.